As state government files suit to block the EPA's Clean Power Plan, the companies that produce electricity in Oklahoma are already making changes to comply with the new environmental rule. As it turns out, Oklahoma power companies are finding the economic benefits of cleaner energy.
Oklahoma Gas and Electric Company tried going to court to block EPA rules in the past, but with the Clean Power Plan, that is not the company's first move this time.
We have 840 megawatts of wind now in our state. Out of about almost 4,000 statewide, about 840 of those are OG&E megawatts. So that kind of action, we feel like we're on a trajectory towards compliance, but we still have a ways to go.
OG&E spokesman Randy Swanson says the company's newly built solar energy complex in front of the decades-old Mustang power plant is a test that will determine just how far into solar energy the company ends up going.
It's generating electricity today and will be for 20 or 30 years. So it's a test, though, and if it works well, and we're already getting a lot of good information from that farm.
The White House shows Oklahoma energy producers have already cut their CO2 emissions, while at the same time dramatically increasing their use of renewable energy. OG&E is converting to natural gas 2 of its 3 Muskogee coal-fired power plants. Their plans call for CO2 scrubbers to be installed at their 2 Sooner power plant facilities near Red Rock. Scrubbers are complicated and expensive technology, and there is ongoing disagreement on whether they will work well enough to meet the EPA requirements. Steve Agee is an energy economist and dean of the Minder School of Business at Oklahoma City University. Agee agrees that America is already well on the road to winding down coal as a power-generating fuel.
It's recent data shows that by 2040, only 6% of electric power in the United States will be generated by coal, whereas it was as high as 40%.
The Clean Power Plan calls for a 32% cut in CO2 emissions compared to levels in 2005 by the year 2030. AEP-PSO reached an agreement with the Environmental Agency on the Hayes Rule, which left them on the high side of compliance with the new Clean Power Plan.
We wanted to put together a plan that put us in the position of complying with all of those regulations that would apply to our power plants, instead of coming up with a plan that met one and then we would have to have a different plan that would meet the next regulation and so forth and so on.
Stuart Solomon, President and Chief Operating Officer of PSO, says of their 2 coal-fired power plants near Oologah, one will be shut down next year. The second one 10 years from now, but adding technology meanwhile to reduce CO2 emissions. Solomon says PSO expects to make up the lost generating capacity by purchasing electricity, their natural gas plants, and renewable energy.
We now have about 21% of our energy pie, if you want to think about it that way, in terms of renewables, specifically Oklahoma wind energy.
The utility is also now building 3 small-scale solar facilities like OG&E to test the system to determine what works best in the future. The Grand River Dam authorities are placing one of its 2 coal-fired plants near Choteau with a new natural gas burning unit and installing new emission controls on the remaining coal facility. Western Farmers Electric Cooperative and operators of the AES Shady Point coal plant say they are still studying the plan. And there is another major power-generating company in Oklahoma that many Oklahomans know little about.
The OMPA, I think, is probably one of the most diversified power supply portfolios in the state.
David Osborne is general manager of the Oklahoma Municipal Power Authority, an electric generating state agency that serves 250,000 customers in 41 cities, which own their own electrical distribution systems. The authority owns all or portions of 16 power plants across Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas. The power mix is among the most diversified in the state. 43% is natural gas, 30% is coal, 10% from outside purchases, and 17% is renewables, including wind, hydroelectric, and methane gas from a landfill. For OMPA, the Clean Power Plan and how it impacts operations will still depend in large part on how other states decide to comply.
We have coal plants, which are the primary target of this plan, in 4 different states. So my answer always is a little bit glib, but it's a little bit, tell me what Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma are going to do, then I'll tell you what we're going to do.
Because Oklahoma is part of the Southwest Power Pool, electricity that flows across our border and back again is generated in several other states, and decisions made by those other states could still impact consumers here.
And under this Clean Power Plan, I mean, it's up to each state and it's up to each operator, but I do anticipate that probably most all of our coal plants will continue to operate. They may just have to operate at a lower output or a lower level.
To make up for the lower output, Osborne says gas-fired plants would have to run constantly. Yes. Tom Ryder is general manager of the Municipal Electric Systems of Oklahoma.
We represent 63 municipal power systems that serve and provide power to 400,000 Oklahomans.
Governor Mary Fallin has ordered state agencies to not do anything to develop a state implementation plan to meet the EPA's new requirements. Ryder says not filing a plan will likely make the process even more difficult.
There is a benefit to letting the states do it because the states can work with their neighbors to do it a lot. More importantly, it's a process by which they can establish the standards and how it's going to be reached and what they're going to do to get there.
Jim Roth is a former corporation commissioner. He is now an attorney and chairman of the Clean Energy Practice Group, which advises policy issues for clients in the power generating industry. He sees the Clean Power Plan as just the latest in a very long string of environmental choices.
You know, one of the greatest things about America is that when we know better, we do better. And if you look at the Clean Air Act from 1970 forward, with the 1990 amendments, with the recent issues associated with regional haze and the mercury air toxic standard, now this Clean Power Plan, we are in an evolution of addressing what it is that we're learning.
Learning that man's actions are impacting the climate of the planet.
We can argue all day long about who is causing it, but the real responsibility is to react to it and to try to move our country and ultimately the globe into a safer place.
And many other nations are also moving away from coal-fired power plants. Roth believes actions by the U.S. encourages others to do more to fight climate change.
But it's one thing to stand in your yard and to criticize the tall grass in the neighbor. You got to mow yours first.
Mark Davies is the Wimberly Professor of Social and Ecological Ethics at Oklahoma City University. For him, the issue of clean power comes down to a moral choice.
For the well-being of our children, our grandchildren, and the future of the entire planet. So I think it's really one of the greatest moral responsibilities of our time to do something to address and arrest climate change.
Dr. Davies says it is unfortunate that the issue has become so politicized, especially when it is clear that climate change is occurring and mankind is playing a role in that. He says for most Americans, the debate now is what to do about it.
The president did say something I think that was very important. He said, we're the first generation to feel the effects of climate change, and we're the last generation that really can do something about it.
Despite all the changes being made already to generate electricity across the nation, numerous lawsuits will be filed to block the EPA's Clean Power Plan, and that will include Oklahoma Public Utilities.
We participate in a variety of industry groups, Chamber of Commerce-oriented industry trade groups, and they will file, so we will necessarily be part of those litigations because of that.
And now the Environmental Protection Agency has added another proposed new rule in the battle against climate change. The methane rule is the first ever on the oil and gas industry's emissions of the potent greenhouse gas. It's proposed to reduce methane gas emissions by 40 to 45% in a decade.